It's like, okay, we've been together for a few years and now we're going to just dissolve the marriage. It's like, what? Marriage is a life contract. Not anymore, apparently. Hundreds of thousands of years of human development, this didn't exist. Everything you're saying about what women want and how guys can pick them up didn't exist. Well, the way it used to work, you had a village of 100 people, and all of the children of the village grew up with each other, going to the same church and going to the same school, and were dating at 16 and married at 18 and had kids at 20. So there was no sleeping around. There was no going to bars. There was no, did they have an orgasm before or not? It was literally Jimmy and Sally knew each other since they were 5 years old. Their lives were identical. The wants and desires were almost the exact same thing. The women of their community said, here's what women do. The men of their community said, here's what men do. The men strived to be like the men. The women expected the men to behave like the men they knew, and the men expected the women they knew to behave like the women they knew. And it was a lot easier. Now, so when you look at it this way, you can see the starting points of a man and a woman almost right next to each other in exactly the same way. They lived on a farm. They rarely went to the city. And once a week, they'd go to church and they'd meet similar people and talk about their days. And then this is not too dissimilar from the idea of arranged marriage. Then society and population expanded largely with the advent of the petroleum economy and industrialization. And with population went from, I mean, it's nuts when you look at global population right before the Industrial Revolution. And it's this very flat line. And then oil, boom, billions of people. Now, your average person is 20 years old and is trying to meet people he has nothing in common with, or she has nothing in common with. And this creates conflict, unattraction, circumstances of ebbs and flows in attraction. It is something humans did not experience up until the past 70 or 80 years.
And also, I mean, internet, TV, porn. Like kids, you watch Slamfest. Okay, that's not how a girl has an orgasm.
Yeah, I mean, feminism as well. Women have more options. But all this plays into it too.
Real quick, even in the 50s, it was very much like you were in high school together, and then it was like Jimmy and Sally are they're going steady. Wow, you know what's crazy? When you were dating, a girl or a guy could be dating 10 different people. What did that mean? It literally meant they would hang out. This is the crazy thing.
It's almost like we're a different species, and we're not quite, but it's like we've entered the realm of a new species with with electricity, and we're kind of
it's the internet,
adapting.
bro. It's the internet, and it's how communities have disconnected. Because this is what I was saying. In high school, in like the narrative of the 50s, I wasn't alive in the 50s, but the narrative and the tropes and our understanding was a girl and a guy would be dating, and that would mean that they went to the movies together one time, held hands, and then went home, and that was it. Now it's like a dude hits a girl on Tinder, goes to her house, and they bang day one. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that was unheard of 60, 70 years ago.
In the 90s,
no, go ahead.
I would tell, if we started dating a girl in the 90s when I was like 14, I would be like, I'm going with her. And my mom would be like, where are you going? I'd be like, no, we're going out. That was the term of we're dating, is we're going.
Now marriage is dating. That's with no fault divorce, marriage is basically dating. It's like, okay, we've been together for a few years and now we're going to just dissolve the marriage. It's like, what? Marriage is a life contract. Not anymore, apparently.
What were you going to say, Candace?
We're talking about like traditional like snapshots throughout history, though. But if you go further back, it's like something like all civilizations, if you take them from like the dawn of time, only 20% of them have ever been monogamous, right? So I was shocked to hear that I thought it was going to be higher, but it was polyamory, so one guy, multiple women. It's very, very rare, unless you were in like towards the Arctic Circle, that it would be one woman,
like
many
chimps.
men. Yeah. So, but typically it's one guy, many females. Occasionally it's one woman, many males, and that was where there were like limited resources. So she needed other guys to provide things. When people when like early hominids were mating, what would happen is like the female would go after like this alpha guy, get his seed, right? Because that's going to be the most likely to survive. Alphas tend to be like the worst parents because they have so much testosterone, right? Like they're more likely to like demonstrate violence and not want to like stay and take care of like the little and the female. So they tend to be more nomadic. She would then couple up with like a more of a beta guy because that was better for long-term relationships and caregiving. Yep. So we still have that in our bodies. And I think right now what women are doing, especially with having so many options, is we're not recognizing that wiring is still there. So you have to be able to kind of evolve past that more primitive state and say, if I'm being attracted to like someone that has dark triad or who isn't going to be be there for the goals that I have, which is like to start a family, long-term marriage, then maybe don't go after that guy. So instead, we're kind of letting our biology make bad decisions for us. And you have
why the father and the brother were so important, and arranged marriages were a thing, because if you give women the ability to pick their own partners, you guys make really bad mistakes early on when your value is at its highest. And then by the time you're, ready to settle down, your value's been depleted to a guy that might want it. That's why Virginia was such a big thing for so long.
Well, also, though, it's kind of alluding to the fact that didn't have issues as well, because there was a lot more violence against women back then, too, with arranged marriages and before divorce was a thing. And you had master and head laws that up until the 70s, like rape wasn't a thing as long as you were married to your rapist, right? Like that's not okay. So we're pretending that like as long as like women are.
I mean, sex is a duty for a woman to her man, and
it is a duty, but like, does any man want to have sex with someone who doesn't want to have like that? Like, how do you have forceful sex with someone and still want to do that?
I mean, we could definitely say that's messed up, but I think that's important to understand that, like, right, women don't really have to align with their duties as a wife, but men almost always have to align with their duties.
I think both should.
Sure, yeah, for sure. But what I'm saying is that, like, okay, so the problem is that, like, with feminism and other things is, like, women want the privileges and the benefits of chivalry and like the security of marriage and the sanctity of that, but they don't want to hold up their end of the bargain. Versus, like, for men, right, like, we have to do what we're supposed to do, and if we don't, we deal with consequences for it. Women initiate most breakups, they initiate most divorces, etc. So, if I'd say, what, I don't feel like paying the bills anymore, like, you would look at me like I'm crazy. But like when women say, well, I don't want to fuck my husband anymore, it's completely socially acceptable, right? So, and this is a big reason actually why I tell guys, like, marriage nowadays with the marriage courts involved and getting married through the state isn't in your best interest, because you don't have leverage anymore. And when you don't have leverage over women, they behave very poorly, if I'm going to be honest.
What's the motivation in marriage?
For men or women?
For a man.
Honestly, dude, I mean, in today's day and age, you really don't get any real benefit besides the title. You can get everything through a regular relationship. Now, again, I think you can marry religiously, and I think that's great, because having children out of wedlock's hell. But to get the state involved, that's where I run into issues.
I do agree. I recently got married. It's for family. It's for moral tradition.
Of course.
It's for
absolutely.
Raising strong, honorable individuals. I told Allison.
Better for the kids.
Absolutely, and that's what it's all about. So I completely agree. The courts are broken. No fault divorce is broken. But I didn't get married for myself. I did it for my child, who's going to be here very soon.
Yeah.
Because I want them to grow up with strong moral tradition and understanding that there is duty and responsibility.
Agreed. And that's why I tell guys, if you're going to get married, do it religiously. Don't necessarily do it with the state or try to avoid the state, because the nuclear family with, married parents is going to be significantly better. But what I'm trying to illustrate here is that, like, what I've realized with women is, like, there's more social acceptance for them breaching the contract than there is for men.
So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's my yeah.
Well, it depends on like what parts are being breached. If we're talking about sex, that's something that's like so intimate, and then that will affect the relationship. Like if you force.
Well, most marriages are sexless.
Right, and I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's okay. Like, why are you in a relationship then? So I think a lot of women.
But I think that's the norm, because women aren't really held to like a standard on their side when it comes to marriage obligations.
Yeah, it's confusing, because I've heard it phrased kind of similarly, where like a woman is tricking a man into monogamy, but really it's celibacy, right? So I'm like promising you monogamy, but then once we become in that monogamous relationship, now you get like marital deathbed, and then what's the point?
Yeah, because I mean, I don't want to sound like an asshole, but like, a woman's main agency is her sexuality. So if she doesn't give you that, then like.
It shouldn't be weaponized. I firmly, like, I hate when I see women of like, you don't do this, I'm not having sex with you. I don't think that's healthy.
They leverage sex for compliance.
Right. I don't think that's okay. But I'm saying, like, if a woman isn't having sex because like her body is telling her not to, like there's like some kind of reaction that she's getting, she's like, it's not working, like nothing is getting lubricated, there's no arousal, she doesn't feel safe, then you have to look at like bigger issues within that relationship. So like, what
she got married to him, so safety should be.
Well, maybe, but people change too over time. So it comes back to like not doing your duty. So if you do have a man that's like not showing up, not following through, not doing his end in whatever way that was agreed upon within that relationship, her body is going to say like unsafe, unpredictable, unreliable.
I think
there's only one way to deal with that, though.
Force.
No, not. No. Well, of course. I mean, that's not the way I was going to say. This is why it's so important for men to like stay attractive and have other options. Because women only respond favorably to men that have other options that can replace her. Women behave the best when you can leave them.
I think we have a problem with dishonor. And I don't know, but a lot of the stuff that I hear, while I do agree and understand what you're saying, I hear a lot of guys who say things like men are disposable. And it's true.
Yeah.
From an evolutionary standpoint. But that doesn't mean, like, it's crazy to me that there are guys who are very, very selfish. Like, I should get what I want out of everything. And it's like, I don't know. The way I view the society is I do like the chivalry. I like the hero charging into battle, sacrificing himself for the greater good, for building something brilliant, planting trees whose shade he knows he will never sit beneath. And that is something that men need to accept. If you were a guy, life will be harder in a lot of ways. It's not going to be fair to you. You will be treated as disposable garbage. You will be insulted. And that is part of a man being transformed from a wad of cookie dough into being carved out of stone. So all these guys out there that are like, it's not fair, it's not fair. Stop being a weak little bitch. Life's never going to be fair to you. It's going to treat you like crap. It's going to throw you in the mud and spit in your face. And then you have to stand up and say, that's what being a guy is.
Yeah, and I think if a guy does, traverse these obstacles, that their woman needs to follow their lead and be completely submissive. And this is why I'm so big on like male leadership. Like I think anything where women are in the lead, it leads to problems. It's very problematic. And
started more wars. Is that true?
What, women?
I heard that female leaders have started more wars than men. Let me ask.
Yeah, I've heard that stat too. But I think the biggest thing is when it comes to relationships, because too many guys are like okay with letting their wife or their girlfriend run things, and that's like a Trojan horse to the end of the relationship because they're told you and your woman are equal partnerships, and that just sounds good on paper but doesn't work.
Yeah, Genghis Khan set his wife to be the administrator of the capital when he was on campaign. Like she was a brilliant administrator. And I think one of the values of marriage through the legal system is you get to share money and you can give her all your money to administrate.
I think that's bad.
So it says actually,
it takes a load off if you're a businessman.
So this is interesting. Historically, through all of human history, men have started more wars. Why? Well, there's more male leaders. Mm-hmm. However, in modern society, it's actually comparable. Women and men start wars at nearly the same rates. So that's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I see your perspective, but I think, I'm a big proponent of like separate bank accounts, your woman not having access to your money, because I think it could just be problematic. But what I realize is this: when it comes to marriage and dealing with women nowadays, you got to come at it almost from like a defensive standpoint where if she were to leave you or divorce you or whatever, you're mitigating as much risk and damage as possible, because the problem is that the family courts and the marriage system that we have nowadays incentivizes women to leave you, and they get rewarded for it. So I'm like, damn, if you're going to get in a business contract with someone that's incentivized to break it, like that's not good on your end. So you need to hedge your bets and have things in place where you protect your assets.
This one matters for Western context. From 1480 to 1913, European queens were 27% more likely to engage in military conflict than kings.
Elizabeth, how much of it was
Elizabeth? My stats now. Women suck as
Elizabeth,
leaders too. Let's go.
Yep.
I knew it.
She was a beast.
She was a beast.
Yeah, she was an animal.
Because women always say if women ran the world, it would be better. And I'm like,
Not the European ones, I guess.
yeah, I guess not. Yeah.
When it comes to like women upholding their aspect of the social contract, I feel like if a man follows through on his word and makes her come like at least once a week, you ever have an unforgettable orgasm? I don't know if you guys, where it's like you still remember it. Like that you should be doing to your wife weekly. And she will always
Well, that's
be there
assuming
for you.
like she wants to have sex in the first place, though, which I think is the biggest problem, is that like women just like, I don't feel it anymore. You know what I mean? And this is what I mean when I say like women's attraction is backwards. Like the things that they're aroused by that they actually want, like are almost detrimental to their long-term security. This is why like it's so important for the guy to just be attractive, keep his sexual market value high, and then have the potential to cheat on her. Am I saying go out and smash a bunch of chicks? No, but you definitely need to be capable of doing it, because women only respond favorably to men that can replace them, unfortunately.
I've heard this, so I'm interested how Candace views it. There's like a meme, and it's that women want to date a man who they feel could leave them at any moment for any woman, and they want a man who is nice to them, but they know he doesn't have to be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I would agree with all of that. And going back to, so I hate to say red pill because I think it's more black pill when you have like these nihilistic, like really angry dudes online. Like red pill to me seems like you're based in reality, right? You're not so emotionally charged, but it's this idea that they're not going to be respectful to women anymore. They're not going to be chivalrous because of feminism. So like you want to be treated equally, and then I'm going to treat you like a dude, instead of like recognizing that we are vastly different creatures. So it's almost weird because it's like this horseshoe thing where we're going into liberalism where like there's no difference between men and women. Like no, there are fundamental differences. And then if you kind of double down and go into the leadership position that a lot of these guys are saying, if you're a leader, you're not going to be influenced by, like, I hate to say the word, but like a subordinate or a submissive or someone that like you're supposed to be leading. You're going to be who you are regardless of that influence. So if you have these principles that are I'm going to open the door, I'm going to be respectful, I'm going to always operate as my highest self regardless of the other outside influences, because those are my principles. I think what I see a lot now is like men just like totally giving up, taking their ball, going home and saying like, I don't want to have values or principles anymore because like women suck.
MGTOW.
Not all women suck. There are plenty that do, and not all guys are great and principled either. So it's like, be the best version of yourself, the strongest version of yourself, be principled in your actions regardless of like quote feminism.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of guys, they're looking at it like the juice just isn't worth the squeeze. I have to work 10 times harder to get a girl that's more ran through, that isn't going to respect me, doesn't respect masculinity in general. So like for a lot of guys, that's why the passport movement is like blowing up, because guys are like, American women suck, which I'll be honest, they do. So I don't blame them for going to Colombia or these other countries where they have more traditional women, because guys have to work significantly harder for a woman that's a slut to obey them. I mean, I find it crazy how Juan can come in here from Mexico, right? Have no money, broke with like 3 kids, and his Mexican wife is more submissive to him than a man that has millions and has his Americanized wife in the household that's being a raging bitch. And again, you know, I think there's problems on the male side too, because men don't understand that they have a masculine burden of performance to be that guy. But if you are that guy and you have your stuff together, simply put, most women don't qualify for marriage.
Well, do you think that most men are showing up that way, or do you think it's probably equal, that in like both sexes you have underperformance on both ends?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, both the genders have their faults. For men, it's underperforming, and it's for women, they're just hoes. So if a guy does perform and gets to that point, it doesn't make sense for him to wife any of these girls up, because most women want to get married, but they don't want to necessarily be wives. So it's tough. It sucks on both ends. But I do think long term, this is only going to hurt women, because we know women are social creatures. They get far more fulfillment from being around the people they love, versus for men, we're defined by our status. And we can always, you know, find a woman later on in life. For women, they have a finite amount of time to get the guy and consolidate. So I think this hurts women more.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.